David Fleming from the Disciples Ignited YouTube channel, where we are focused on Jesus, advancing his kingdom and preparing his disciples. Now we're studying the book of Romans, and we're in Romans chapter 4, where we're studying about faith. Now today we want to talk about the faith of Abraham and how it is such an example to us. First of all, Abraham's faith was really the reason that he had a relationship with the Lord to begin with. You see, Abraham's faith responded to God's grace. What did God's grace do? God's grace reached out to Abraham and drew Abraham unto himself. But Abraham had to respond by putting his trust, his faith in the Lord. In the very same way, we have a relationship with the Lord just as Abraham did by putting our faith in Jesus. You see, putting our faith in Jesus means that we are trusting him to have done the work that we could not do. We could not save ourselves. Only Jesus could do that, but we had to put our faith in him for doing so. We must exercise this faith daily, not to get saved over and over again, but so that we continue to walk with the Lord by faith, not by our feelings. Abraham's faith also enabled him to receive revelations of God's promises. See, God promised Abraham and his wife Sarah that they would have a child. But as time went on and Abraham got older and older and Sarah became older and older until finally the time came that they were too old to have children. But yet Abraham put his faith in the Lord. And though his wife's womb was already past the point of being able to bear children, he still believed God. And that's what enabled him to receive that which God had promised. And receive he did. He had a child named Isaac. And Isaac grew and became an adolescent. And then the Lord came to Abraham and said, Abraham, I want you to give to me Isaac as a sacrifice. And that brings us to this other point of what an example Abraham is to us concerning faith. His faith motivated his action. He didn't balk at God and rebel and say, absolutely not. This is your promise and I'm going to hold on to it. I'm going to keep it. No, he said, Lord, I believe in you. I trust in you. I cling to you. I rely upon you. And then we find that Abraham said, Lord, I just believe that if it comes to that, which I will offer him as a sacrifice, but you'll even raise him from the dead. Thankfully, it didn't come to that. God stopped Abraham right before that dagger went into Isaac, and Isaac would have been offered as a sacrifice. But the Lord said, now I know that you will do whatever I ask. You see, Abraham's faith enabled his action. And then lastly, we see that this faith of Abraham is really an example to you and to me. What kind of faith do we have in Jesus? Do we have the faith that Abraham exemplified, the faith that caused him to rely upon the Lord, trust in him? Is it the kind of faith that kept Abraham going year after year when his body was growing old and yet he was holding on to God's promise? Is it the kind of faith that will motivate our obedience? That's the kind of faith that Jesus is wanting from his disciples. And that is the faith that Abraham exemplified. Let's talk again tomorrow.